All right, everybody, welcome to the final lecture for professional skills for the research scientist. Today is kind of a more of a tutorial than anything else. There's no assignments associated with today's lecture. There is one example of an assignment that I've used in years past, but because of the nature of what we're doing here in this class, with it being all online, and with the number of assignments I know that are starting to stack up for people, I decided to get rid of it. But I'm going to put it in there because I think that if you go through it and look at it, it would be helpful for you. It's in reference to some of the cover letters. So, what we're going to do today is first we're going to kind of walk through how to submit an article. And I'll kind of start with a brief little anecdote of when I wanted to first submit my first research article. It was my master's thesis. It was about a year after I graduated with my master's degree, and I had finally written the paper to a point where, my mentor had said, okay, we're ready to submit this. And he said, can you submit it next week? So I did what any self-respecting master's student would do, and I waited till Friday at about, 2 p.m., 3 p.m. to do that. Only once I logged into the online journal submission website did I realize how ill prepared that I was. I figured it was going to be something as simple as just taking the Microsoft Word document and emailing it to my professor. Whoa, did I underrepresent what I was in for when I got that to that point. So I ended up having to email all of my co-authors and let them know, yes, I know I had told you that I promised to have this submitted by this week. However, I need this document, I need this signature on this page, and I need your address, and I need somebody else's phone number, and then I will hopefully get back to this next week. So, with that little anecdote, we will move forward. This is what I thought was a really cool tweet from somebody. I actually responded back to them, and I said, hey, I'm going to use your tweet in my lesson a little bit later this semester. So, here we go. Mr. Madhu Pai says, okay, journal, ready to submit your manuscript. Absolutely. I have done all the work. I am ready. And so you say, yep, I'm ready, cracking my knuckles. Do you have all these ready? And it says, okay, well, you need your login details. Your ORC ID, which is a kind of centralized ID, you need to have that. What about the manuscript? What about each image, cover letter, conflict of interest statement, author signatures, supplemental files? If you need a checklist if you're doing a review paper, what about the permissions? How about your registration details if you have a clinical trial? Here's some authorship eligibility. I'll go over that in a minute. What about contributions? Who did what? Funding details. What about the consent forms? References formatted. Artwork. Names of reviewers. Names of people you don't want to review your paper. Believe it or not, you have to do that. Keywords. Your ORC ID for your co-authors. What about title page? Copyright form. These are actually all things. I'll let you read through these all on your own. I won't go through them. But believe it or not, pretty much all 40 of these items are things I have been asked for when submitting a manuscript. Now, given it's probably not going to be within one manuscript, but, Madhu is not exaggerating too much when he's putting all these things. And if you look at the punchline here, he goes, I am very sorry I tried. I will never make this mistake again. I might start my own predatory journal. So as you can see here, this could be quite a challenging process. But the purpose of today's lecture is to make it less challenging and less painful. So let's start at the beginning. Okay. Let's zoom back out here. And there we go. Okay, how to submit a manuscript. Step number 1. The first thing you want to do when you're in the early stages of writing that journal article, okay? You have just finished maybe your master's thesis, and now your mentor says, okay, let's write an article about this. Well, the first thing you want to do is decide what journal you're going to send it to, because then you will go to the author guidelines page and follow and find some important information that you can use when you're writing the journal article. The worst thing that you can do is just write an article, just write it blankly, and then pick a journal and then find out, oh man, I'm 3,000 words over the word count. I have 6 tables and figures. They only allow 3. Which ones am I going to cut out? It's way better if you know this beforehand. So I'll give you a quick little example here. If we go to the Journal of Applied Physiology, this is a journal that, I've submitted to before. Let's say you want to go to submit. Okay, I want to write a paper for the Journal of Applied Physiology. Well, If you look here, let's see, submission instructions, it's a little bit challenging. It'll bring you to this page. And then from this, you have to hunt around to find information for authors. And then at this page, you can finally say, okay, well, what article types do they want? What are the formatting requirements? This is probably one of the most important ones. And you can see here they have different things. Okay, format and style. Then you have your abbreviation, terminology, and symbols. And then names and nomenclature. So they have a lot of recommendations in there. And we're going to be talking to a journal editor a little bit later in a separate video. And he'll talk about some of these recommendations. So step number 1. When you're writing your article, make sure to check those author guidelines. They will be very important for your journal article formatting. Number 2, once you have that manuscript written, it's been reviewed, it's in a good state, what do you want? Well, you need a title page, okay? And a title page, I'm going to show you an example on the next page in a minute here. And I've included this, and the reason that I'm presenting this in Word format today is because I want to give this to you. This has a lot of good information in it. And it will hopefully enable you to basically cut and paste some different information into these examples. So on your title page, when you're getting ready to submit, reach out to your co-authors and get this information from them. Believe it or not, you need their name. I can't tell you how many times I have tried to get a person to know, do they want their middle initial included or not? Some people don't care. Some people really do, especially if their name's common and they want that included. What institution are they from? What's their division, department, or lab group that they're associated with? Email address, physical address, phone number, and then we'll move on to contributions. You don't need these for every single one, but you might. So having this information before you start to submit is going to streamline your process. What about contributions? This is something, especially if you're a student right now, you're going to want to go over this with your mentor, because obviously they're the person who's acquired the funding for the project in general, and this can be a little bit of a sticky situation, looking at who's going to be an author on the paper overall. My general rule of thumb is I go back to the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, and they say you have to have 4 things to be an author on a paper. Did you have substantial contributions to the conception or design of the work? Okay, so if you think about this in my field, I am not necessarily going to be in the lab collecting the data unless we're doing like a blood draw. You know, if you think about Miranda's project with the firefighters, I did not perform a single measurement during the VO2 max testing. Yeah, I got in the heat chamber a couple times and I did some blood draws, but I didn't do any of the VO2 max testing. She did all that, but I did a lot of contribution to the conception and design, okay? But what if you're a master's student and that's already been designed before you get there and your mentor says, hey, do this project? Well, you've done or the acquisition. You did a lot of that information. You can also have the analysis. What if this project has already been done, but none of the stats have been run? Well, you would qualify for an author if you did the analysis or help to interpret that data for the work. So you have to have one of those. And you have to write the paper, either writing it directly, drafting the work, revising the work, revising it critically for important intellectual content. So one or the other. You have to either write the work originally or you have to revise it and give some feedback. Number 3, final approval of the version to be published. Now this can get a little sticky as well because everybody's busy and everybody's had the opportunity or the experience where you have your paper, you send it out to all your co-authors, you say, hey, can I get everybody's comments back by X or Y date? And then that date shows up and 2 of your co-authors have not gotten back to you. They're very busy people. You don't know. What do you do then? Well, what I always like to do in that situation, because it happens every time I write a paper, and it doesn't say anything about those people. It doesn't say they're a bad person. It says that they probably got this, backlogged in their list, their to-do list. You send a very nice follow-up email and you say, hey, do you need more time to review the work and provide edits? If not, would you please be able to just provide an email back to me stating that you approve of my submission? What that does, it allows you to kind of CYA a little bit, because if that paper gets published and then that person says, hey, I never approved of this, you can then say, yes, you did. Here is the email. I've never had that sort of thing happen, but it's always great to cover your bases. Okay, last one, and here it is. There's that agreement to be accountable for all aspects of the work, and that's what providing that email does. Okay, everybody associated with the paper is going to stand by those results. They're not going to be able to come out afterwards and say, oh yeah, by the way, I don't agree with this. Okay, so here's an example of a title page that I did. Has the title, has all the authors up front with their different institutions associated with them. Make sure you put that in there. It has the corresponding author information, and then down here at the bottom we have a character account, how many figures, how many tables, and then some journals want a running title, basically a short version of your title overall. So this is just an example of what a title page would look like, and I encourage you to kind of use this template just like you did with the CVs when you write your next paper. Use something like this. There's other versions out there as well, templates, but this is a nice, easy, clear one that I've been using for many years now, and it seems to work out all right. Okay, so let's move on. After you get that title page done, then you want your abstract document, and you said, okay, well, I made my thesis. Well, why don't I just include that in the manuscript? Well, some journals want this separate. Okay, they're going to have you cut and paste it into a box that's going to be part of the submission overall, but they might want that abstract document separately, so do that separate. Also, make sure that you get the headings in that abstract correct. In that author guidelines document I talked about before, they will tell you, do they want methods, or do they want that section to be titled materials and methods? Okay, there's different, do they want a conclusions at the end, or do they just want a kind of discussion section on there, on your abstract specifically? So make sure you get the correct headings, all right? So you've moved past, you got the title page, you got all your author information, you got your abstract document, now you got your manuscript. Now, it's important to make sure with this manuscript that it's blinded, because what the editor is going to do with this journal article is send it out for peer review. And they don't want the reviewers to know this is coming from so-and-so, because that person might either be your buddy or have worked with you in the past, and you don't want them to know it's your paper, because you don't want a review that is not objective. Okay, it's not based on that work individually. Or it could be a person you've disagreed with in the past, and you don't want them to know that, because that could skew their opinion as well. So you want to remove your names, remove any identifying information. So obviously the title page doesn't go along with this. Then with that, you're going to include abbreviations. So here's an example of a paper that I wrote when I got here. And if we look, let's see if I can get the scroll bar going here. There we go. Right before the abstract, here's the abbreviations page. Okay, and so every abbreviation that I've used in this document is right here in alphabetical order for easy reference. Some journals want that, some journals don't. So if requested, you put your abstract again. Yeah, I know you have it in a separate document, but you put it here again. Then you have your references, you have your tables, and you have your figure captions. This is kind of like a weird kind of vestigial thing that has happened due to how journal articles used to be sent in. What do we mean by figure captions? Well, when you actually put your document together, at the end of it, after your references, after your tables, you'll have one page which is figure captions. These are the captions that go along with the figures that I'm going to show you how to make in a minute. They are separate from the actual figure. Don't include this text with the graphic. They have these in the editing software. They put these in separate sections, so you want to make sure that picture is just a picture and your text is just text. Okay, so figure captions go into that manuscript document. Okay, you got that. It's all tied away. It's nice and safe. All right, we're ready to go. Next, figures. You need an individual file for each figure. So what I like to do is, let's make this a little bit smaller so everybody can see it. When I'm making my figures, I put them in one PowerPoint document, just like this. So here's my recruitment figure. Here's another figure from looking at urine concentration over different time points. And here's kind of a different figure. And I have two different versions of this figure. I think I ended up using this one right here. And so if you need an individual figure for each one of these, what you would do is just File, Save As. you go to PowerPoint presentation, and you go down to JPEG. Generally, that's the file format they want. Sometimes they want TIFF, or if you're looking at some Westerns, they might want a different file type. Just pay attention to that. And then once you do that, you can press save. And name it as the figure number. So figure 3. Save. And then you're going to get a little error message here to say, this already exists. Okay, I'm going to save it again. And then, which slide do you want to export? All slides are just this one. And you're going to click on just this one. And what that'll do is it'll make one JPEG file with just that page. And that will allow you to upload it very easily when you get to that stage. Okay? So that covers our figures right there. Next, move on to cover letter. What? Cover letter? I thought I'm not applying for a job here. All I'm doing is trying to write a manuscript and submit it. Well, believe it or not, you're going to want to write a cover letter for this. And this could be the difference between your article getting reviewed or not reviewed. This is your pitch to the editor. They will read this before they read your article, and you have to catch their attention with this cover letter. It can be very simple, very straight to the point, but you want to make sure that you do have a cover letter. I've included a very long, like a 11-minute video that you should watch before you write your next one because it's important. So here's a little document that gives you 8 steps to an effective cover letter. This document is just for your reference. This goes into a little bit more about how to address these, how to make it personal, why did you pick them. But basically, all I say with this is you want to use that business letter format, address the editor, find out who it's going to, and put their name in there. Introduce your article. What's your article title? Then tell them what the main finding is. Then why it belongs in their journal. What I like to do is I like to search the journal for similar topics and go on from there and say, okay, have you done something similar to this paper before? Well, if so, here's the title of that you published 2 months ago that had to do with hydration. And I want to make sure that you know that my article belongs in your journal because my paper also has to do with hydration. At the end of it, you're going to certify that you haven't published it yet. Believe it or not, some people will send their journal article out to multiple journals at the same time and just accept it to the one it gets accepted to first. That's not allowed. You have to go one journal at a time. So you want to make sure that you state that in this letter. If you have presented those findings anywhere else, let them know. I presented this at Experimental Biology in 2018. Okay? Just let them know that it's been out there because some of those journals have published abstracts. So you want to make sure that you have full transparency with that. And then the last thing, if you look at my example of a cover letter right down here, which I once again encourage you to use as a template, you want to have a nice original signature, and I'll put that in air quotes right there. If you haven't scanned in a copy of your signature, I would recommend that you do that. With being in academia, you need to use it a lot, so I would recommend that you have this saved as a nice signature file so that whenever you need to import it, you just insert a picture into a Word document and you can easily upload that to give it that look as if you have an original signature on there without having to scan it and have it be kind of cloudy with that scanned PDF look. Okay, so here's an example. Read through this next time you have to write a cover letter and put it in there. All right, we've covered cover letter. Yep. Oh, big thing here. Make sure you proofread that. Last step. Access the journal website and submit. What I'm going to say here, give yourself at least 2 hours for this task. I said like before, I've tried, it's taken me half a day because I've made mistakes. Because what happens is you put all these different documents in, and then they will compile one single PDF from that, and then you have to go through and check. Oh, did they put those in the wrong order? Oh my gosh. Well, I forgot an accent over somebody's name in my author list. Okay, I got to go back and make that all again. You want to make sure. And I'm saying here, back in Connecticut where I'm from, going to the DMV was not as easy as it is here, where you walk into a room and the wait's about 5 minutes. This was a thing where you go up to the counter, you take a number, and then you sit in a chair for about 3 hours waiting to get called. and you invariably get up to the front of the line and they say to you, oh, do you have this form? And you go, what? No, I don't have that form. And they go, okay, well, you're going to need to come back. And you have to go home, fill out that form, find your birth certificate or your passport or, some random piece of information, and then come back another day. Don't be surprised the first time if that happens to you when you're submitting an article. Okay, so let me just walk you through this real quick to end up this video. So here we go. Let's go back to the Journal of Applied Physiology. Here is me logged in to their online journal submission kind of form. And what you can see here is on the side they have all these different areas. This is where you're going to put in some of your figure files. So let's say we wanted to insert that file right there. We go to Browse. We go to, and I would go to, let's say, Protocols. This is my Dan Owen project. This is my writing folder. Here's all the different drafts of that. Well, here's the main paper for submission. Here's my third revision. And then we're going to do this version right here. And we're going to open that, and that's going to go in. Okay? So we would want to order these. We put the cover letter in here, everything else in there. All your tables, all your figures would go in here. And then you can reorder them how you need. Then you go to your title abstract. Nope. Let's delete this because we have to upload it. We're going to delete it just to show you what comes next. Title and abstract. Okay, it's all red right now because I haven't done it correctly because I'm skipping. You put your title in here, your running title, which is shorter, only 60 characters. Here's where your abstract goes. Here's where your new and noteworthy, why should we publish our paper. Author information. Next, this is where things get slow. What if you have a paper with 10 co-authors? Well, you have to import this information for all of the people. Add another person. Okay, I'm going to put all of their information in here. And you can see with this one, they don't require quite as much information as I said before, but you got to know, are they a member of the journal? Okay, what's their title, their name, their email, institution, city, country, author contributions. Aha! So just like we said before, we got to make sure we document all of that information. After you finish that, here's some detailed information. There's a lot of questions that are associated with it. What kind of funding agencies did you have? Which authors does that apply to overall? What's the grant numbers that are associated with this project? You got to have that. Then you move on. A bunch of questions that you have to answer. Put your initials in there. Sign off, sign your life away, basically saying that they have ownership of your work after you leave it. Then suggestions. Which editor do you want this to go to? Which editor do you not want this to go to? You're going to have to do some homework. And then what about suggested reviewers? Well, how do you pick people to review? Well, here we go. You can pick people from the editorial board, or what I really like to do is I like to just go on PubMed and look up the topic of the paper. Find people who I am not necessarily associated with. I haven't published with them in the past. They're not a part of my department. And they're not people who strongly disagree with any viewpoint I may have, and suggest them. Do you have people to exclude? I would recommend not including any exclusions unless there is a person out there who you know is really kind of mean about this kind of thing and you want to make sure that they're not included. Okay? Then any electronic forms. Okay, maybe there's a submission form that has that. Okay, so I'm going to have to download that and do that one. After that, you're going to review the material, all the data, all the manuscripts, and then you can finally submit it. So even just going through these different pages right now just took me about 5 minutes. You can imagine how long it's going to take you to enter all that information. I hope this has been kind of a little bit informative without being too overwhelming for you to get to where you are. But if you get past that, you will be able to submit your manuscript. Okay? Hang tight for a minute. I'm going to come back with a second part of this, and that's going to be about the next step, peer review. What happens if you're a peer reviewer? How do I go about that? And then the other side of it, which is kind of more important, is what if you get reviewer comments back? How do I appropriately respond back to those?